My mom's eyes were wide, her mouth slightly open, like she had just walked into a room she wasn't prepared to handle. She clutched her phone with both hands, staring at the image I had sent seconds earlier. "What?" she whispered. This cannot be happening." Behind her, the house was loud in that familiar way. Voices overlapping. Someone calling her name. Something being knocked over in the background. Not dangerous. Not dramatic. Just overwhelming. The kind of noise that always meant too many expectations packed into one space. On her screen, instead of me sitting on her couch like always, there was a picture of a beach chair, my sunglasses resting on the arm, and a plane ticket with today's date printed clearly across it. She looked back at the phone, then at the room around her, then back at the phone again, like if she stared long enough, the situation would correct itself. "You were supposed to be here," she said finally, her voice tight. "We planned everything around you." And there it was. The sentence I had heard my entire life, dressed up in different words, but always meaning the same thing. You will adjust. You will cancel. You will make it work. I was 27 years old, single, quietly independent, and for the first time in years, I had planned a holiday that didn't revolve around fixing someone else's schedule. No big announcement. No rebellion speech. Just a small, private decision to spend Christmas the way I wanted. But my family had built their perfect holiday on one assumption. The same assumption they had leaned on for years. That I would disappear. That I would quietly give up my plans. That I would step into the background and take over. That I would be the automatic solution so everyone else could relax. On the other end of the call, my mom kept talking, her words tumbling over each other. About how hard everyone worked. About how much they needed help. About how this wasn't the time to be difficult. I barely heard her. Because for the first time, I could see the pattern clearly. Not just this moment. Not just this Christmas. Every holiday. Every weekend. Every last-minute emergency that somehow always landed in my lap. They didn't ask if I was free. They assumed I would be. They didn't plan with me. They planned over me. And when I didn't show up the way they expected, they didn't see it as a boundary. They saw it as a betrayal. My mom stared at the screen again, her voice dropping to a whisper. "What are we supposed to do now?" I didn't answer right away. Because this story didn't start with that shocked gasp on a video call. It started weeks earlier with one phone call that pushed me past my limit and made me realize I was done being the family's backup plan. And if you've ever been treated like the automatic babysitter, the default helper, the one whose life is always negotiable just because you don't have kids or a partner yet, stay with me. And tell me at the end if you think I went too far or not far enough. 2 weeks before that video call, before the beach chair and the plane ticket, before my mom's voice dropped into disbelief, my phone lit up with her name while I was still at my desk. It was late. The office was quiet in that end-of-day way, lights dimmed, keyboards clicking less and less as people packed up. I had been staying late for months, saving every extra dollar for a solo Christmas trip I'd planned back in the summer. Nothing flashy. Just space. Silence. A few days where I didn't belong to anyone but myself. I answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom." Her voice was bright. Too bright. The kind of cheer that always made my stomach tighten before my brain caught up. "Jessica." Perfect timing. "I have the most wonderful plan for Christmas." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. When my mom said she had a plan, it usually meant she had a plan for me. "Okay," I said carefully. "What kind of plan?" "Well," she began, casual in a way that felt rehearsed, "your brother and sister are both bringing the kids this year. And honestly, they deserve a break. They work so hard." There it was. The setup. "We were thinking," she continued, "that you could watch the kids for a couple of days while we get everything ready. Just so we can have some adult time and actually enjoy the holiday." Just the kids turned out to be 5 of them. 2 under 3. One in a phase where everything was sticky. And a pair of twins who treated furniture like climbing equipment. "It'll be fine," she added quickly. "You're so good with them." I closed my eyes. "Mom," I said, "I already told you I booked a trip for Christmas. Remember? The one I've been saving for all year." There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough for her to decide how to reframe it. "Oh, I know," she said with a light laugh. "But you can move that, right? It's not like you have a husband or kids to work around. You're flexible." Flexible. That word burned more than anything else she'd said. Because flexible didn't mean adaptable. It meant disposable. "My tickets aren't refundable," I said. "And I already took the time off work." She sighed, the kind of sigh that carried disappointment without saying it outright. "Your family needs you," she replied. "This isn't a big deal. You get breaks all the time." "They don't." I stared at the half-packed suitcase sitting in the corner of my apartment when I got home that night. Clothes folded neatly. Sunscreen already tucked into the side pocket. Proof that this wasn't a whim. It was a promise I'd made to myself. "This isn't about the kids," I said finally. "It's about the fact that no one asked me. You just decided." "Oh, don't be dramatic," she snapped, the cheer evaporating. "Everyone else has real responsibilities. You should be grateful we trust you." Real responsibilities. As if my job didn't count. As if my time didn't matter. As if my life was just a placeholder until something more important came along. Something in me shifted then. Not anger. Not tears. Clarity. "I can't promise anything," I said slowly. "I need to think." "You don't need to think," she replied. "You know what the right thing is. We're all counting on you." Then she hung up. She didn't wait for an answer. She never had. And for the first time, instead of figuring out how to cancel my plans, I found myself asking a different question altogether. What would happen if I didn't save them this time? After that call, I didn't do what I usually did. I didn't call her back with a compromise. I didn't start rearranging my plans in my head. I didn't open my calendar to see what I could cancel. I just sat there. My phone was still warm in my hand, the last of her words echoing in my ears. "We're all counting on you." It wasn't a request. It never was. It was a conclusion she'd already reached, one she expected me to live up to like I always had. I told myself I just needed time to cool off. That I was overreacting. That it was just one holiday. But once the thought settled in, it didn't stay contained. Because when I looked back, really looked back, this wasn't new. It was a pattern. Every Christmas where I arrived early and left late. Every weekend where I was the only one available. Every time someone needed help and my name came up before anyone even thought to ask me. I could see it clearly now, like a trail of small moments I'd brushed off for years. The Christmas I skipped my office party because my sister needed just a few hours to get ready, which turned into the entire evening. The New Year's I spent at home because my brother double-booked himself and my mom volunteered me without checking. The family wedding I watched through photos because someone decided last minute that the kids needed supervision. At the time, I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was being helpful. That this was just what family did. But help turns into obligation when it's expected. And obligation turns into resentment when it's never acknowledged. What hurt the most wasn't the time I gave up. It was the way it was framed. Like my life was always the least important variable in the equation. Like everyone else's plans were solid and mine were flexible by default. I wasn't angry because they needed help. I was angry because they never considered that I might say no. Later that night, I called my friend Martha. She picked up immediately. "You have that voice," she said. "What happened?" I told her everything. The phone call. The word flexible. The way my mom had said real responsibilities. I paced my apartment as I talked, stepping around my suitcase like it was a reminder I wasn't supposed to acknowledge yet. When I finished, Martha was quiet for a moment. "Do you realize they do this every year?" she asked. I swallowed. "I know." "No," she said gently. "I mean really realize it." Then she started listing things I had almost forgotten. Not dramatically. Just fact by fact. Year by year. The way an outsider sees a pattern you're too close to notice. "They don't treat you like a person," she said finally. "They treat you like coverage." That word landed hard. Coverage. Like I wasn't a daughter or a sister in those moments. Just a solution. A buffer. A way to make everything else run smoothly. "What would happen if you didn't show up?" she asked. The question made my chest tighten. Because I knew the answer. Chaos. Disappointment. Blame. And underneath all of it, something I had been avoiding for years. They would have to deal with the mess they'd been quietly handing to me. I don't want to hurt anyone, I said. Martha didn't hesitate. Setting a boundary isn't hurting people. It just feels that way to people who benefit from you not having one. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, one thought kept looping in my mind. I wasn't scared of ruining Christmas. I was scared of what would happen if I stopped holding everything together. And that fear told me exactly how much I'd been carrying. The next morning, I woke up to a notification that made my stomach drop. It was the family group chat. Normally, I muted it during the holidays because it filled up fast with plans, reminders, and long message chains that somehow always ended with something I was expected to handle. This time, though, I opened it without thinking. Confetti emojis lined the screen. My siblings were excited, relieved, already relaxing. And right there in the middle of it all was a message from my mom. Jessica already promised to take all the kids so we can focus on hosting. We would be lost without her. I stared at the word promised. I hadn't promised anything. I had said I needed time to think. Somewhere between that sentence and this message, my hesitation had been rewritten into a guarantee. A decision made for me, shared with everyone else like it was a settled fact. My brother replied first. That's amazing. We really needed that break. My sister followed almost immediately. Seriously, thank you. I don't know how you do it. They weren't being cruel. They were being honest. They believed what they'd been told. No one asked me if it was true. No one checked before celebrating. No one even tagged me to confirm. They just accepted it. I felt something shift in my chest, slow and heavy. This wasn't just about babysitting. This was about control. About how easily my consent was erased because it was inconvenient to ask for it. For a moment, I considered correcting it right there in the chat. I imagined typing out a careful message, explaining myself, smoothing things over like I always did. But I knew how that story went. My mom would jump in to clarify. She'd say I misunderstood. She'd tell everyone I was stressed, overthinking, being dramatic. And somehow, I'd still end up watching the kids. So instead, I stayed quiet. I watched the messages roll in, the relief spreading as everyone checked one more thing off their list. And in that silence, something settled. If my family was comfortable making promises on my behalf, then maybe it was time they felt what it was like when those promises didn't hold. I finally typed a response, keeping my tone neutral, almost polite. Got the messages. I'm still sorting out my schedule and will let you know. I hit send. Out loud, it sounded reasonable. Cooperative. The version of me they were used to. But inside, the plan was already changing. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a confrontational way. In a quiet, deliberate way. Later that day, my mom called again. Everything's basically set, she said without preamble. Your sister already ordered outfits for the kids. We're counting on you. Mom, I said evenly, I never said yes. She sighed, irritated now. You didn't say no either. And I knew you'd do the right thing. The right thing. The phrase landed differently this time. Because I finally understood what it meant in her world. It meant doing what made everyone else comfortable, even if it came at my expense. When we hung up, I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. They had built their holiday on an assumption. They had shared a promise I never made. They had removed my choice without a second thought. And for the first time, instead of rushing to fix it, I let myself ask a dangerous question. What if I didn't correct the lie? What if I let it stand and let the consequences fall where they may? That afternoon, I opened my laptop and stared at the screen longer than I needed to. The tab with my trip had been open for weeks, quietly waiting. I had checked the dates more times than I could count, like if I looked at them often enough, I could convince myself I deserved it. December 23rd to December 27th. The exact stretch of time my family had already decided belonged to them. Up until that moment, the trip still felt theoretical. Something I could back out of if the pressure got heavy enough. A plan that only existed as long as I defended it. Now, that hesitation felt smaller than something else. Tiredness. I reread the confirmation details slowly. The location. The check-in time. The non-refundable note highlighted in plain language. I hovered over the button for a second, thinking about all the ways this would be framed once they found out. Selfish. Dramatic. Unnecessary. Then I clicked confirm. Just like that, the trip stopped being a negotiation. It became a fact. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. My mom's name flashed across the screen. "Have you thought about what we discussed?" she asked, skipping any greeting. "I have," I said, keeping my voice calm. "And?" She didn't hide the expectation. "I'm still figuring things out," I replied. There was a sharp exhale on the other end. "I already told your brother and sister you'd help. They're counting on you." I looked around my apartment. At the quiet. At the suitcase now fully packed by the door. At the life I had built that never seemed to factor into these conversations. "You shouldn't tell people I promised something when I didn't," I said. "I knew you'd come around," she replied, brushing past it. "You always do." That was when I realized something uncomfortable. She wasn't ignoring my boundaries by accident. She was ignoring them because it had always worked. If I told her about the booking now, she would cry. She would tell me how disappointed she was. She would remind me of everything she'd ever done for me. And she would call other relatives until the pressure came from every direction. I had played this game before. And every time I lost. So this time, I stopped explaining. "I'll let you know before Christmas," I said. There was a pause. Then her voice dropped lower. "Don't pull anything last minute," she warned. "We have a lot riding on this." After we hung up, I didn't spiral. I sat down at my table and opened a blank document. I started typing. Every holiday I'd rearranged. Every time I'd been volunteered. Every comment about how I'd understand once I had my own family. The list grew longer than I expected. By the time I finished, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from recognition. This wasn't about one trip. It was about years of being quietly positioned as the solution. That night, I packed the last few things I'd been putting off. Not because I wasn't ready, but because some part of me had still been waiting for permission. I zipped the suitcase closed and stood there for a moment, listening to the sound. It felt final. Not because I was leaving, but because I was done pretending my life was optional. Christmas Eve arrived faster than I expected. I woke up before my alarm, the apartment quiet in a way it never was on holidays. No instructions waiting on my phone. No last-minute grocery lists. No reminders about nap times or snacks. Just the soft hum of the city outside and my suitcase standing by the door like it had been there all along. My flight was late morning. According to my mom's version of the plan, I was supposed to be at her house by noon. I made coffee slowly, almost on purpose. I showered, got dressed, and chose the least festive outfit I owned. Not out of spite, but because this wasn't a performance. It was just a day. My day. Before leaving, I opened the family group chat one last time. New messages had piled up overnight. Pictures of half-wrapped presents. Comments about how behind everyone was. Jokes about how chaotic things already felt. Right in the middle of it, my mom had written, "Jessica will be here tomorrow to take the kids so we can finish everything. I don't know what we'd do without her." Something about seeing it again made my jaw tighten. Not anger. Resolve. I opened a private chat with her instead. I typed the message once, erased it, then typed it again more carefully. "I want to be clear. I never agreed to watch the kids this Christmas. I told you weeks ago that I had plans. I'll be out of town over the holiday." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I hit send. The typing dots appeared almost immediately. "Out of town," she wrote. "What are you talking about? You knew we were counting on you. You can't change your mind now." I took a photo of my packed suitcase by the door. Then I pulled up my flight confirmation and took a screenshot, the date clearly visible. "I'm not changing my mind," I replied. "I'm just not canceling my plans this time. No apologies. No explanations. Just facts." The replies came quickly after that. "You're being selfish. You're ruining Christmas. You know we can't handle all of this without you." I didn't respond. I silenced my phone, grabbed my suitcase, and walked out the door. The airport was crowded, buzzing with holiday energy. Families rushing. Announcements echoing. Lines forming and dissolving. For once, it didn't feel like my responsibility to manage any of it. I checked my bag, went through security, sat at the gate with my headphones on. About 30 minutes before boarding, I checked my phone again. The group chat had exploded. What do you mean Jessica isn't coming? Mom, you said she promised. So who's watching the kids? For a full minute, no one mentioned my name. Then it started. Jess, are you serious? Tell me this is a joke. I typed one message into the group chat, then stopped myself. Reread it. Made sure it said exactly what I meant. I'm not a built-in babysitter. I love you all, but I'm not spending every holiday taking care of 5 kids while everyone else gets a break. I told Mom I had other plans. I'm out of town. I sent it. And as my boarding group was called, I watched the read receipts appear one by one. For the first time, I didn't stay behind to fix the fallout. I picked up my suitcase, stepped forward, and let the consequences catch up without me. Once I was on the plane, everything went quiet. Not just my phone, which I'd put on airplane mode, but my head. The familiar buzzing anxiety that usually followed family conflict never showed up. No replaying conversations. No drafting explanations I'd never send. Just the low hum of the cabin and the steady realization that I had actually gone through with it. When we landed, my phone lit up the second airplane mode turned off. Missed calls. Voicemails. Dozens of unread messages. For a moment, I considered turning airplane mode back on and disappearing into the rest of my trip. But another part of me, the part that had always stayed behind to deal with the aftermath, wanted to see what happened when I didn't intervene. I opened the family group chat. The tone had shifted completely. The first messages were confused. Wait, so Jessica isn't coming at all? I thought this was handled. Mom, you said she promised weeks ago. Then the frustration started to turn. We booked everything around that. Why would you tell us she agreed if she didn't? This makes no sense. For once, the irritation wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at the person who had made the assumption. My mom tried to regain control of the conversation, repeating the same explanation in different ways. That I'd changed my mind. That I'd surprised her. That she didn't know what had gotten into me. But something was different this time. No one rushed to defend her. No one immediately blamed me. The illusion cracked just enough for everyone else to see it. A video call came through from my mom. I hesitated, then answered. Her face filled the screen again, more strained than before. The house behind her looked lived in the messiest sense of the word. Wrapping paper scattered. Half-open boxes. People moving in and out of frame. Where are you? She demanded. I told you, I said calmly. I'm out of town. She stared at me like she was trying to rewrite reality in real time. You can't just leave us like this, she said. Everyone's already here. The kids are here. We're drowning. I listened. For the first time, I didn't rush to fix it. You planned everything around me without asking, I replied. I told you I had other plans. You chose not to listen. This isn't fair, she said, her voice breaking. You should be here. This is your responsibility. That word again. Responsibility. It landed differently now. No, I said quietly. This is the result of a plan you made without my consent. She looked away from the screen for a moment, distracted by something happening off camera. Someone calling her name. Something falling over. When she looked back, her voice was lower. This can't be happening, she whispered. But it was. And for the first time in years, the chaos wasn't mine to absorb. I ended the call gently. No shouting. No final speeches. I set my phone down and stepped outside. The air was warm. The sound of the ocean drifted up from somewhere nearby. People laughed as they passed, unburdened by expectations that didn't belong to them. I sat down, took a breath, and felt something unfamiliar settle in. Relief. Because when you stop being the one who saves everyone, you finally see how much they were leaning on you. And sometimes, that's the only way the weight becomes visible at all. I didn't hear from my mom again that night. Not after that video call. Not after the group chat finally went quiet. For the first time I could remember, Christmas Eve passed without another demand, another accusation, another last-minute request for me to step in and smooth things over. I spent the evening walking along the beach, listening to the waves instead of complaints, letting the day end without fixing anyone else's problems. The call didn't come until 2 weeks later. It was a random Tuesday evening. I was folding laundry, half watching something forgettable on TV, when my phone buzzed with her name. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. Old habits tugged at me, reminding me how easy it would be to delay, to avoid. Then I thought about how long I'd avoided these conversations already. So I answered. "Hi, Jess," she said. Her voice sounded different. Quieter. Worn down in a way I hadn't heard before. "Hi." There was a pause. Not the tense kind, but the kind that comes when someone doesn't know how to start. "I wanted to talk," she said finally. "Just talk." "I'm listening." She took a breath. I could picture her sitting at the kitchen table, phone in hand, the house finally calm. Christmas was a disaster, she admitted. Your brother and sister fought all night. Plans fell apart. I had to cancel dinner. We ended up ordering food and eating in the kitchen while I tried to clean up. She didn't dramatize it. She didn't exaggerate. She just told the truth. "I'm sorry it was so hard," I said. And I meant it. But I'm not sorry I wasn't there. There was a long silence on the other end. "I know," she said quietly. "That's what scares me." She told me about a conversation she'd had afterward. How someone outside our immediate family had asked her why she assumed it was my job to fix everything. Why she spoke about my time like it was unlimited, like it belonged to everyone else first. "I didn't hear it until then," she said. "Not really." I closed my eyes. "You could have asked," I said. "You could have given me a choice." "I know," she replied. "I didn't. I told myself you didn't mind. That you were strong. That you didn't have as much going on." Each sentence sounded heavier than the last. "And now?" I asked. She exhaled slowly. "Now I know that assuming isn't the same as respecting." It wasn't a dramatic apology. No tears. No grand promises. But it was the first time she hadn't tried to rewrite what happened. And for once, that was enough to keep the conversation going. We didn't resolve everything in that call. That surprised me. For so long, every difficult conversation in my family ended one of two ways. Either I gave in and things went back to normal, or everyone pretended the issue didn't exist and waited for the next holiday to repeat it. This time was different. "I don't want things to go back to how they were," my mom said after a moment. "I don't want you helping us because you feel trapped." I let that sit between us. "I'm not saying I'll never help," I replied. "I love the kids. I love spending time with them. But if you want my help, you ask. You don't assume. And if I say no, that has to be the end of it." She didn't interrupt. That alone felt new. No guilt, I continued. No telling people I promised something I didn't. No building plans around me unless I've agreed. If that happens again, I won't explain myself next time. I'll just step back. On the other end of the line, she took a slow breath. "That's fair," she said. The word landed carefully, like she was testing it. "There's one more thing," I added, my voice steady. "If I'm watching 5 kids for days at a time, that's babysitting. Not just family time. And babysitting is work." She hesitated. Not because she didn't understand, but because this was the first time I'd named it that way. "I can do that," she said finally. "If we ask you to babysit, we'll pay you." A year ago, I would have backed down right there. I would have laughed it off and said it wasn't necessary, afraid of sounding difficult. This time, I didn't. "And if you ever tell people I promised something I didn't," I said quietly, "that's a hard stop. I won't cover for it again." There was a long pause. "I don't want to be that person," she said softly. I didn't like how I sounded this Christmas. That mattered more to me than an apology. Because it meant she hurt herself. "I can forgive you," I said after a moment. "But I'm not going back to being who I was before. This is how things work now." "I understand," she replied. And for the first time, it didn't sound like she was agreeing just to end the conversation. We talked a little longer. About neutral things. About work. About how everyone was adjusting. No one raised their voice. No one tried to win. When we hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. Because boundaries aren't about punishing people. They're about deciding what you will no longer accept and meaning it even when the other person finally understands why. Things didn't magically fix themselves after that conversation. There was no group apology. No sudden shift where everyone became perfectly considerate overnight. But something fundamental had changed, and I could feel it in the small moments. The family group chat stayed quieter. When plans came up, they were framed as invitations instead of instructions. No one spoke for me anymore. No one assumed I'd rearrange my life without being asked. A few weeks later, my sister texted me. "We're thinking about a family get-together in the spring. No babysitting. Just hanging out. Are you in?" For the first time, I believed her. Not because I trusted everyone completely, but because the question itself was different. It treated me like a person, not a placeholder. I still help sometimes. I still show up. But now it's because I choose to, not because I'm expected to disappear. Looking back, I know some people will say I should have handled it differently. That I should have warned them more clearly. That I should have spoken up sooner. Maybe they're right. But how many times are you supposed to explain your boundaries to people who only hear you when it's convenient? For years, I tried being reasonable. I tried being flexible. I tried being understanding. None of that worked because it never cost anyone anything to ignore me. It only changed when I stopped absorbing the consequences for them. I didn't ruin Christmas. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped sacrificing myself to keep everything running smoothly for everyone else. And the truth is, if stepping back for one holiday was enough to make everything fall apart, then the problem was never my absence. It was how much I had been holding together. So I'll leave you with this. If you've ever been the automatic backup plan, the one whose time is treated like it doesn't count, ask yourself this. Was I wrong for choosing myself? Or was that the first time anyone actually saw me? Tell me what you think. Would you have done the same?